Hello boys and girls, and welcome to the first video post for the Monocled Gamer. As you may have guessed, I am the Monocled Gamer, figuratively of course, and today we're going to be talking about Wednesday's blog post on Dragon Age 2. Is it as bad as is claimed, or is it just unfairly blamed? To begin, let's just reiterate a couple of the things that are truly flawed in Dragon Age 2. First, and in my opinion most glaringly wrong, is the recycling of environments. Now when I say recycling, I don't mean bits and pieces of environments are the same, I mean the entire environment is the same. Houses will be the same over and over again. Manors, always the same decrepit, creepy manor. And the worst to me is the caves. It's always the same cave. For a phenomena created by the effects of nature randomly on rock, it's exactly the same, and that just bugs me. The only thing that'll change in these environments is that doors may or may not open. Even in the cave, doors may or may not open. And because of that, you begin to learn where enemies are going to spawn, where items are going to show up, where crafting materials are going to be. And it removes a lot of the surprise and the impulsiveness of combat and replaces it with dull predictability at times. Fortunately, you can avoid some of this, but if you want to be a completionist and do everything, you're going to see the same environments a lot. It is truly, in my opinion, the greatest downfall of this game. There are a couple other little things here and there that are bothersome. The female character models are unrealistic. Really, if you can't see that, you live in a very interesting place. I don't know. They're all just very buxom women. And compared to other BioWare games, especially BioWare games of the past, it feels a little bit surprising that it is this way. I mean, normally BioWare does a fairly good job of keeping people realistic enough, and in this case it feels like there's almost a pandering towards a demographic going on here. And while I realize gamers are predominantly male, I really enjoy games that don't pander based on costumes or anatomy or how things look so much as bring in audiences based on story. And I feel like this is targeted less at bringing in fantasy game players and fantasy story readers and people who love that kind of thing, compared to bringing in people who like seeing giant female chests. Ta-da, I guess. Only other thing I can really think of off the top of my head that bugs me is the need, the default need to press the attack button every time you want to attack something. At first, it's really, really cool. You enjoy it a lot, it makes combat feel more visceral, more involving. However, after the 10th or 15th hour, especially if you're playing someone like the rogue or the warrior who hits the button a lot, you will get carpal tunnel. Your thumbs will hurt all the time. And that's really unpleasant. So fortunately, BioWare is BioWare, and there is an option in the settings menu when you hit pause that allows you to turn it on so it's attacking is like Dragon Age Origins. You pick a target, you hit attack, and they keep attacking until such time as that person dies or you do something else. Fortunately. There are other little faults here and there. What game doesn't have them? Largely bug-free game. I didn't run into much. And that being the case, let's talk a little bit about the pros of the game, which in my opinion truly do outweigh the cons. First pro, relating back to combat, combat is balanced. If you've played Dragon Age Origins, combat in that game was inherently unbalanced, which is to say that the three major classes, warrior, rogue, and mage, weren't fair. There wasn't a rock, paper, scissors sort of thing going on. It was more mage, mage, mage. Nothing else compared to what a mage was capable of doing. Just to keep it brief, mages could tank better than a warrior. They could put out DPS more quickly than a rogue. And it was all really easy to do in the end. And it made the game fun for many people who enjoy breaking the game and basically becoming a god within that game world. But for people like me, it made it less fun because I wanted to play a longbow rogue. And I really couldn't. It didn't work out. The power level was not scaled to be equal. And in that way, Dragon Age 2 is much more fantastic. Combat is balanced. There really is more of a rock, paper, scissors going on. Warriors tank, rogues DPS, mages can crowd control or eliminate as need be. They're basically a more generalized version, but obviously have the specialty abilities and the status effect abilities of a mage. That aside, there is a lot more going on in combat. I talk about it a lot more, and I really believe that it's these changes in combat that are the cause of most of the derision of the game that it's receiving on forums and on game review sites. If you want more about that, please check out the written blog at the monocledgamer.blogspot.com. There's a lot more about it there. That's what most of the post is about. And I encourage you to check it out, please. Leave comments and let me know what you think. However, moving on to what I think is the biggest pro of the game, its story. The story of Dragon Age 2 is interesting. It's told in a relatively interesting manner. Instead of ambient voiceovers and narration, you're getting someone who's telling it from the end. So he knows everything that happens, and he's giving us the beginning of the story all the way through. This not only creates slight more realism for the narration, it also allows them to slide in DLC fairly seamlessly, which is nice, as a big fan of DLC. Honestly, the strongest part of Dragon Age 2's story are the characters. Each of the major characters you can have in your party in the game is voiced well and is interesting, as they tend to represent a common trope in this kind of story, in a fantasy story. And as I say in the blog, we have lovable rogues, we have goody two-shoes, etc., etc. I really encourage you all, those of you who have the game and maybe are undervaluing it right now, who haven't done this, to take the time to talk to each of your party members, to get to know them, because in getting to know them, you unlock the real potential of the game. Because the potential's in the variability of the story. Each character has motivations that bring them into and out of the main story, with one or two exceptions. And those motivations can conflict or coincide with your own. If they conflict, you might begin to start having a hate-hate relationship with this character, and they might desert you, leave you behind in a horrible state, take something from you that you really need, or otherwise cause you a large amount of grief. In-game, in story, unexpectedly in many times. Comparatively, or on the other hand, we have the characters you do agree with, who you form great relationships with. Maybe you form a romantic relationship, they move into your house with you, they affect all of the dialogue there, they create other dialogue options within that place, and then they help you out. They have friends who might suddenly come into the story and give you a hand. Just the number of permutations within the story are really very interesting. The major plot points of the story, though occasionally far between, particularly in Acts 1 to Act 2, there's a really big gap of really sort of piddling missions in there that really you're just grinding for a bit in there, and it can get tiresome. If it does get too tiresome, once you have what you need to move on, do it. Acts 2 and 3 are much more interesting. Things get way heavier. You become a more major player in that universe. So I encourage you to do that. But overall, the story of the game is what makes it worth playing. The story is what gets you through the same cave for the 5th time. It's what leads you to do some of the more grinding missions, because you know you're going to get something interesting out of one of your characters for it. You're going to find out something about them that might change the entire scope of the game, as can often happen. And you might even start finding out things about the end of the game, which you might not have otherwise known. My jaw dropped at the end, I will say that, and it's something I didn't see coming because I didn't investigate the characters in my party enough. Enough about Dragon Age 2. If you want to talk about it more, come to the forum, comment here or comment there. There's much more about Dragon Age 2 in the blog post. So enough of that. I want to use this last little bit of time to talk about what the Monocled Gamer is meant to do. We're going to try to make the most use of your valuable time here by telling you what games you're going to most enjoy. With that in mind, we're going to have new content Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of each week. Monday and Wednesday are going to be new written blog posts for you. Friday is going to be a new video post like this one that's going to go over those posts a little bit and spend a little time maybe on something new that happened in the meantime. With that in mind, I really just want to say Monday, Fallout New Vegas, OC versus DLC. Come check it out on monocledgamer.blogspot.com. See you then.